All right, so now we're up to lesson 4, which is the last lesson where we're learning letters. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able, if you review everything, to read every Coptic word. And I'm stressing Coptic because the next lesson, if you remember from the syllabus, is about Greek words. So after this lesson, you should be pretty much set. So it's monophonemic consonants too, which if you remember, monophonemic means one sound. And then complex consonants, which I just use the word complex to mean multiple sounds. I'm unsure if polyphonemic is a word. So the letters we'll discuss are Xi, Psi, Janja, Shima, Rama, and Chi. If we were to split it up, well, it doesn't split up nicely here, but these three would be the complex ones, and these three would be the monophonemic ones. So the first one's Xi. Just like the name says, and just like I have written here, it makes a X sound. So the K and the S makes a X sound. I have here in this bullet point that no imaginary jinkum is needed. What I mean is a lot of people, when they see this letter next to a consonant, they would do whatever the consonant is. So let's make this consonant an R or R. So most people, when they see it, they would say Rex, Rex, even though there's no jinkum there. You could just say, well, let's put a vowel before it. So most people say Erex when it's just Erx. Erx. I like to avoid putting an X down because it can mean different things, but if it's just a KS, it's definitely X. Now, the next point is important, I think. This word is almost always, if not only, found in Greek words. Now, remember from the first lesson, Greek words, there's no such thing as a jinkim in Greek. So you can't have something like that in Greek. If you didn't see what I did, I put a jinkim on this Xi. You're not going to have that in Greek. So you shouldn't have it in pretty much any word with a Xi in it. Last thing, and this is more for your knowledge than for being able to read. Since this letter, Xi, makes the same sound as this consonant cluster, X, sometimes in some hymns, if you know what an acrostic is like a poem where the first letter of each part will either spell something or mean something. So we have a set of hymns in the Coptic Church which we call psalti or psalties. And most of them are acrostic in alphabetical sense. So the first part would start with alpha, and then the second part would start with beta, and the third part would start with gamma. But like I said, this letter is found mostly in Greek words. So sometimes they have a hard time finding words that start with the Xi sound that makes sense to him. So what they'll do instead is they'll find a word that starts with this combination, and they would just respell it with this letter. So for example, the word for you are blessed is kesmarot or ksmarot, but it would be kesmarot in the old pronunciation, kesmarot. So you might see this word spelled with that in the front. just to make sure it fits with the acrostic part of the hymn. But that's more for your own knowledge. So the example words are xenon, xenon. You don't need to say xenon, it's xenon. This word, it's a Greek word. A lot of people pronounce it incorrectly. It's sarx. Sarx. It's a Greek word that means body, sarx, or flesh. Sarx. So most of the time you'll hear people say serex. I think that's more of having a hard time pronouncing it in one go or writing it in Arabic. So like sarx. In Arabic, they usually don't write their vowels. So they could, the vowels are usually implied. So if you try writing it in Arabic, they could put the vowels where they think it should be implied. So for example, they could say sarx, but it's just sarx. It's a Greek word. If you ask any Greek person to say the word for flesh, they'll say sarx. The next two words are familiar to us. Doxa, which means glory, and oxia, which means worthy. Now this letter is another letter that is a consonant cluster. So this letter C makes a ps sound. So that's a P and an S sound. Again, because it's a consonant cluster, a lot of people like to make ps into eps, but it's not needed, especially since it's mostly Greek words that have this. And similarly, where in ipsides this cluster becomes this cluster could become that, just to maintain the acrostic. So for example, the word for savior, which happens to also be a Greek word, but that's besides the point, is sotir. And one of the ways to say the in Coptic, if it's a masculine word, is you just throw a P in the front. So now it's epsotir or psotir. So they like to spell it like this if they need to, psotir. So here are some natural words with the ps letter, with psi. Psalmos, which is psalm, which is why the word psalm in English has that silent P. The P is there in the Greek, but it's not pronounced in anglicized languages or English languages. Psaltis, which is a chanter. In other words, the deacons, quote unquote deacons you see that lead the chants, they're not deacons per se, they're psaltis. And then this word aripsanin. Aripsanin means sing. It's imperative. It's telling someone to sing. Now this letter could be tricky, but it shouldn't really be because it works just like an English letter. So the name of this letter is Janja, and it works just like the English G. So the English G, I'm going to put a list of words, and you're going to see how it's similar. So if I were to have this word, this word, this word, this word, and this word. So we have the G here is pronounced G, a hard G, green, pronounced like a G. If it's before an A vowel, it's game. So it's still, well, it's a bad example, but still it's a J sound, a G sound. Gem, here it makes a J sound. And jin makes a J sound. So before an E or an I or front vowels, it becomes a J. But again, when it's back to O, which is a back vowel, it's a normal G again. So it's normally a G, like game. But before these four vowels, E, and E, the pronunciations, the letters A, Yota, Ada, and Ha, it makes a J sound. These front vowels, they cause a lot of pronunciation changes in certain languages, but Greek especially. This letter, however, is a Coptic only letter, so you shouldn't expect this to be affected by Greek. But these 4 letters here, that's a common pronunciation change in Greek, so I'm just going to call it the E rule or the EI rule, just for shorthand to say before an or an E sound or these 4 letters. So, for example, this is an sound, so you're going to follow the E rule, so it's J. This is not or E, so it's going to be the normal sound, Ga. And then this is an E, so Gaji. Gaji's enemy. And then here, this is an E sound, so this is going to make the J sound. And then this one doesn't have anything after it, so it's going to be a J sound, a G sound, sorry. So it's Jeek. So J, Gaji, Jeek. This, the one that looks like a 6, it makes a ch sound, ch, like a charm or a church. This also often has the imaginary jinkim on it, which isn't needed. So for example, instead of saying ch, some people say etch, or even sometimes etchy. An example when people say etchy is this word. So this word is weird because it has 3 consonants in a row, but you should still be able to pronounce it. It's just this consonant is pronounced by itself. So it's avchenon, avchenon. Clearly, when you chant it, you're going to have to put vowels so you could make it melismatic, but here it's just avchenon. That means they were sweet, soft. They were soft. Soft or softened, one or the other. Same thing, soft. So here, chi means to take. Churumpi means dove. Achne, achne, that's without. And then one more word. This word often gets pronounced with a bunch of imaginary jinkims. So most people would say avechiserex. But notice, if you know the grammar of this word, you'll see why you don't need all of that. The A just says make it past tense. The F here just says it's a he that is doing it. Chi, we see right here that means to take. And this word we already learned before, sarx, that means flesh. So it means he took flesh, or he was incarnate. So it's av, chi, sarx. That's it, av, chi, sarx. If you listen to even more modern recordings of Ibrahim Ayed, he says av, chi, sarx. In older recordings, he would say avechi serex, but then he realized how all those sounds aren't needed. So av, chi, sarx. All right, 2 more letters, and these are the hardest letters. This, in a way, is a precursor for the next lesson. Not really, though, because the next lesson is Greek letters, and these next 2 letters not only came from the Greek, but they maintain their Greek pronunciation oddities, if that makes sense. So depending on the vowel that follows the letter in Greek, most letters actually change their sounds slightly. And since Coptic not only took some of these letters from Greek, well, most of the letters from Greek, but also later on, like we said in the first lesson, adapted our pronunciation to match the Greek one almost 1-to-1. That's why these rules are here. But these next 2 letters, these special rules were almost even in the old pronunciation. So I don't want to give a false perception. So it has 3 sounds it can make. It can make g, or So is an N sound you make in the back of your mouth. So I transcribe it here as NG. If you say happening, if you say happening, keep track of where your tongue is between the two N's in happening. So happening, this N is in the front of your mouth. And then the ing part, your tongue flies to the back of your mouth and you make a sound in the back of your mouth. So happening, and then you hit the G sound afterwards. So let's see when you say these sounds. Almost always it's a R. That's the natural sound. The name of the letter is Rama. It makes a R sound. In the E rule, which recall before this letter, and this letter, these four letters that make sounds or E sounds, it makes a G sound. I'm going to have examples on the next slide, so I'm just going to go through the rules now. So we have R normally, before or E, G. And now this is tricky. Before another G or a K sound, so these four letters, if it's before another Rama, before kappa, before xi, or before chi, it's going to change to the N in the back of your throat. Just like in English, when you say think or thing, both times, the N before the K or the G sound goes to the back of your throat. So think, thing. Same here. Just know this one is a lot more common. These are really rare, especially since these two letters here are almost only, well, no, that's not fair. This letter itself, gamma, is almost only in Greek words. So it's going to be rare to run across these a Greek word with these clusters anyway, but this one, two gammas in a row, is common, and you'll see why in the examples. So here the first one is ⲛⲙⲥ, because it's just in the word, it's going to be ⲛ. The next one is genos. See, there's an or an E sound after it. Here it's an so it's a G, genos. The next one is another rank of deacon, another rank in the diaconate. Anagnostis. So here, it's normally in a word, so you just make the R sound. Anagnostis. Here's a rare word. I did find this in a hymn, but it's a rare word. This word is also Greek. I just ran out of space. So this word, ananki. That means distress. And here is why the double gamma is such a common phoneme in Coptic, or at least the Greek word gets borrowed from Coptic. Angelos. So this first gamma, because there's a gamma after it, you put it in the back of your throat. And this gamma, because there's an after it, it makes a g sound. So angelos, instead of I can't even make the sound angelos, it's angelos. So angelos, so pretty much any word that has angel or has a similar origin as angel, like evangelist, evangelistis, has the double gamma, and it has that rule. So that rule is pretty common. So if you can't remember these three combinations, at least remember this one. And then last example, agios. So here there's an E sound after it, so it makes it ga, agios. Better? this letter is ⲻ, and it makes a different sound based on the language the word is. So if the word is Coptic, it'll make only one sound. If the word is Greek, it'll have the oddities. So if it's in a Coptic word, it's just cut. It's just a K sound. If it's a Coptic word. So this is one of the harder letters, not because it just has 3 sounds, but because you have to know the origin of the word. So here it makes a k sound if it's a Coptic word, but if it's a Greek word, it'll normally make a ⲻ sound, ⲻ, just like this letter we learned before, ⲻ, KH sound. But if it's before an or an e, which remember are these letters, it'll make a sh sound. It'll make a sh sound. Keep in mind, if you ever look into Greek, the Greeks don't make a sh sound, but the sound they make to the Egyptians sounded like a sh sound. That's why it's sh. So in these examples, if I didn't put Greek next to it, assume it's a Coptic word. So the first word here is kaki, which means darkness. Then we have ko, which means forgive. Then we have kimi, which means Egypt. And now we have the Greek words. So normally it's ch. So here it's Christos. Christos. This one I didn't make note, but also this letter most of the time it doesn't need a jinkim, although it's given often. So here Christos. It's not Echeristos. Christos. Next word, psyche. Psyche. That means soul. Psyche. This is where we get the word psyche from. If you spell it out the way it looks or is commonly transliterated, you get psyche. Psyche. And the last one, Michael. Michael. So this one made a sh sound or call because it has an or an e sound afterwards.